rise. I'm fighting for my life.
Three quarterbacks looking for a title to add to their collection, while a fourth continues to stake his position among the group. With the Cavs slide, is there a top five in the Eastern Conference? And in the West, Golden State still at it, and the Blazers are cementing their position. Headlines, previews, predictions, and more. I'm Radio Hondo, and this is The Flashback. Welcome in, everybody, to a Thursday edition of The Flashback. I'm Radio Hondo. A lot to get to. There have been many moves in the coaching landscape in the NFL over the last few days, and the storylines for the Cavs are, well, they seem to be creating themselves right now. Meanwhile, college basketball took an interesting turn this weekend and into the week as well, so let's get right into it with headlines. All right, right out of the gate, controversy about to begin once again in San Francisco. The 49ers yesterday announced Jim Tomsula as the new head coach. He was previously the defensive line coach in San Francisco and passed defensive coordinator Vic Fangio for the position. Vic Fangio, of course, was heard to be said as wanting either Mike Shanahan or himself for the head coaching position, and basically said he would probably leave if he or Shanahan didn't get the role. So it's going to start opening up some questions and some windows here for people opportunity-wise, as well as, you know, what will take place in the structure of San Francisco for their coaching staff. Now, I do have to mention that Jim Tomsula was actually the head coach, an interim head coach, before Jim Harbaugh moved in, so he has a bit of experience in that position. Also, obviously, as a D-line coach, he's out there in the faces with the defense, the strong part of that team for so long, that may actually give him some of an edge. And I don't know if maybe Fangio was spoke to about with San Francisco about the hiring of Jim Tomsula before he took the reign. So maybe Fangio and the Niners got together, talked about it, and Fangio said, you know what, that's not a name that I actually thought about. So if you want to give him the position, bump him up over me, that's fine as well. I don't know. That might have been one of the scenarios that took place. But meanwhile, since we don't know that for sure, we do have to mention that Fangio, of course, said, hey, if it's not Mike Shanahan or myself, I'm out of here. So will the Niners be looking for a new defensive coordinator now? And obviously in the mix, there have been a lot of DCs moving around, as well as some DCs that have left and taken head coaching positions or are in line right now or top candidates for some coaching positions. So, you probably really don't want to lose a defensive coordinator right now. Not really a good spot to lose a defensive coordinator, especially with all the shuffling that, you may not get the top guy that you want. Might not be the right moment to do that, should we say. All right, so again, that right out of the gate, Niners announced Jim Tomsula, the former defensive line coach, to the head coaching position, passing up defensive coordinator Vic Fangio, and Fangio, of course, wanting Mike Shanahan or himself in that role. So a lot of interesting things will take place over the next couple days as far as what the 49ers are going to do from that front office standpoint. Meanwhile, the castle continues to crumble in Denver. Oh, Jack Del Rio has been announced and is set to become the head man of the Oakland Raiders. Will be the next head coach. He, of course, coached Jacksonville for 9 seasons, led them to 2 playoff appearances, and was fined many times on the sideline. One of the most fun things I like about Jack Del Rio, when he was a coach at Jacksonville, I don't know how many people remember this, but he's an old school guy. And he had decided that, hey, I'm going to go down to the sideline as the head coach, and I'm going to go all Tom Landry. I'm going to go all old school. I'm wearing a suit. I'm going to wear a suit on the sideline. The NFL doesn't like that. It's got to be NFL apparel. There's a reason why Bill Belichick wears that hoodie, that modified hoodie. He's forced to wear NFL gear, so he just makes the best of it. And I really think that, just on a side note, the NFL really needs to cool it with that. When it comes to head coaches, if they want to look nice and sharp on the sideline, doesn't that give your league a good image? Why do they always have to be, walking around like it's casual Sunday? I'm not a big fan of seeing guys like Todd Haley out on the sideline looking like a scrub. Now, Todd Haley is a great coordinator, and I think he does a tremendous job. But I don't necessarily think that's a great image from the leadership standpoint on the sidelines from a fan perspective or from a potential fan perspective. So outside of that, I have nothing wrong with Todd Haley, but it's more actually about the NFL policy. The NFL policy allows for it. The NFL policy talks about, coaches having to be in NFL apparel at all times. It's ridiculous. Let the guy put a suit on and represent his team properly if that's the way he feels is the best way to represent his team. Anyway, so Jack Del Rio is announced as the head man in Oakland Raiders organization. Jack was the defensive coordinator, of course, with Denver. So they have lost their D coordinator. Adam Gase, the offensive coordinator, is a big question mark right now. We'll get to that in just a moment. And defensively, Peyton Manning, the big question offensively is Peyton Manning, and defensively, you're going to have to find a new replacement for the D coordinator. So they are in high rotation in Denver right now. It's not looking too good. Jack Del Rio led Denver to the number 3 overall defense in 2015 as well. So that is a big loss. And as I mentioned, Adam Gase, is he going to stay now in Denver? A lot more question marks. Adam Gase was being looked at for that 49er position. Obviously, that's filled right now. So is there still potential maybe for the Jacksonville position or some other opening that may come up, Lovie Smith? You don't know. You don't know. So Broncos, though, meanwhile, formally request an interview with offensive coordinator Gary Kubiak, offensive coordinator over at Baltimore, the Baltimore Ravens. Gary Kubiak now last week said he is shutting down interview requests. He was shutting down interview requests. He wants to stay in Baltimore. So does the Denver front office have something up their sleeves? Because this in itself is a very odd move. You don't have the head coaching position filled yet, and you are looking for an OC. So one of two scenarios has to be playing out. Either A, they're completely ignoring all logic and hiring an offensive coordinator before hiring a head coach, or two, they have a head coach in mind, and that head coach has said he wants Gary Kubiak. If you can get Gary Kubiak, I'll come in. One of those scenarios has to be playing out because it just doesn't make sense to go to an OC and try to fill that position while you still technically have an OC and you don't have a head coach. Is this what Peyton Manning wants? Drew Bledsoe had a little bit of a tough time catching on with Gary Kubiak back in Buffalo when he came on with the Bills. Bledsoe, well-established thrower, had been in a offensive system for so long. Then he comes to Buffalo and had to adjust. Ended up having, I think, 2 or 3 defensive coordinators in a span of 3 or 4 years. I think Kubiak may have been the second or third of that run. And so with that, they just had trouble clicking right off the bat. And the Buffalo Bills organization only gave him a year to get it together. So didn't really have a shot there. And working with the veteran quarterback and Gary Kubiak, as intelligent as he is from an offensive standpoint, that may cause some confrontation with he and Peyton. So if Peyton isn't a part of this as well, you have to ask, okay, is this OC move to try to get Gary Kubiak a push towards the future? Are they rebuilding the castle completely from the moat to the stone top towers? Or or are they just trying to put a fresh coat of paint on it? And if they're trying to put a fresh coat of paint on it, then you're looking at that 2-year plan like I just spoke about on Tuesday. All right. Atlanta Falcons seem to be interested in Seattle D coordinator Dan Quinn, another defensive coordinator with high interest. But Quinn, of course, is with the Seahawks, and he cannot go out for interviews until the Seahawks are out of the playoffs. So if Atlanta's going to make a move on Dan Quinn, they're going to have to be patient. They're going to have to wait 2 weeks or so before they can do that. And with that waiting period, are they going to be tempted to pull the trigger if Dan Quinn is their head man and the guy that they really want? Are they going to be tempted to pull the trigger a little bit sooner if they can't wait 2 weeks to get Dan Quinn, or aren't sure if Dan Quinn wants to come to Atlanta? Because if Dan Quinn not 100% wants to come to Atlanta, then they may have to make a move a little bit sooner than they want to and get a second or third option that they had on their list. Just some things to think about. Finally, Todd Bowles, the former defensive coordinator at Arizona, another one right there, another DC. He accepted the head coaching position with the Jets. So we'll wait to see what he does from an offensive standpoint and personnel-wise. Obviously, I don't think that obviously with Todd Bowles, the defensive coordinating job and the job and work that he did at Arizona stands out. He's gotten a tremendous amount of support from not only players on his team, but players, opposing players. Richard Sherman gave him kudos as far as saying one of the best defensive setups that he's seen. So a great kudos for Todd Bowles. He gets that Jets position. I think he'll do well there from the defensive standpoint. I think that they have enough talent on that defensive standpoint, from a defensive standpoint, and that Todd Bowles can kind of motivate them, get them up and fired up again. Rex Ryan may have lost his mojo with that unit, and they fell in success. But I think the real problem, obviously, is on the offensive side. So what moves Todd Bowles makes personnel-wise as far as players on the team and offensive coordinator, who's going to be there and who can make the changes and give the Jets an effective offensive attack. The guy's name's not Geno Smith, I'll tell you that much. All right, finally, Marcus Mariota has decided to enter the NFL draft. A lot of question marks for Marcus Mariota heading into the NFL draft, and quarterbacks in general in this draft. Doesn't seem to be a real strong draft this season, obviously, for quarterbacks, with Jameis Winston and Marcus Mariota leading the way. And now we have the emergence of Cardale Jones, potentially going into the NFL draft. We're going to find out at 4 o'clock Eastern. It's about noontime right now as I'm setting this record for segment 1. So we're going to find out before we get to segment 3. So I'll let you know whether Cardale Jones is going to go to the NFL or if he's going to spend another year at Ohio State. A partial guarantee or no guarantee. That's really what it boils down to for Cardale Jones. So we'll talk about that a little bit later on once his announcement is set. Again, it's 12 o'clock on the West Coast right now, and at 1 o'clock on the West Coast, 4 o'clock Eastern is when Cardale Jones is going to make that decision. So we'll be right here with it on the Flashback, and we'll let you know right away and give our takes on that. Now, back to Marcus Mariota really quick. One of the interesting things with Marcus Mariota and that system, obviously he runs it very well at Oregon, had great success with it, won a Heisman Trophy with it, but the big question is whether he can make progressions in the NFL, progressive reads in the NFL. Trent Dilfer, I think, on ESPN did a great job breaking that down over the last week leading up to the championship game, as well as I saw a little bit of it, redundancy of it on ESPN last night. And if you have an opportunity to check that out, do that. That was Trent Dilfer discussing Marcus Mariota and his ability to build, grow, and make progressions in the NFL. And I agree with what he had said, that Mariota is not going to be a guy who you can plug and play right away. He's going to be a guy who you can probably bring in there and run some plays here and there. But as far as taking over, I don't think that would be a positive move. Don't think that would be a positive move. He's a very intelligent. He's a very intelligent kid. He can, he's a leader. He's a natural leader. He has a nice, calm demeanor, but knows how to fire people up at the same time. And, with those elements already in place for him, he has an opportunity to really take advantage, sit back, relax, study, and have some success in the NFL. I think he can have some success in the NFL if he gets the opportunity to sit down and study and make that final leap towards being a college quarterback to an NFL college quarterback. I think he has the work dedication in order to get that done. So wish him well in the NFL. That draft coming up, of course, in, the second week of May now? They pushed it back so far. It really bugs me the way they pushed that back. I used to love it. I used to absolutely love it. My birthday is in late April, and I would love the weekend right around my birthday because that used to be the NFL draft weekend. And, people would say, hey, we want to throw you a party for your birthday. No, I don't want a party for my birthday this weekend. I want to sit on my butt at home and watch the NFL draft. Or at least the first round. Now they have the first round, on like a Thursday, second round on Friday. It's gotten crazy. Yeah, it's all marketing, though. All right, one more quick bit. San Diego Padres, yes, they will, Petco Field, they will host the 2016 Major League Baseball All-Star Game. All right, there's a reason to go to watch San Diego baseball in San Diego. San Diego is an awesome town. One of the best towns in America. If you can afford to live there, go for it. If you want to work 3 jobs and live there, go for it. But it is one town and one city that you have to visit and be there. Head down there probably almost as frequently as you go to like a Las Vegas or something. It's just a beautiful city. Beautiful people down there. Nice people. Great places to eat. The Bay, obviously. I mean, you can't go wrong with San Diego. So the All-Star Game is going to be there in 2016. All right. If you have any takes or comments, please put those below. Or if you want to email them to me, I can take a look over them, and we'll discuss them on a later show. Next week, obviously, being our next show. That's going to be Monday. We do podcast or YouTube channel. Put these shows up on Mondays and Thursdays. So always check back with us. If you do send something along, I'll be happy to bring it up on the show and discuss it further. You can email me at radiohondo@gmail.com. radiohondo@gmail.com. I think I said that twice. Don't put 2 Radio Hondos. Just 1 Radio Hondo is enough. All right. Want to get to some college hoops for a quick moment, and we're getting further into the season in college hoops, and we're almost at that point as football winds down. We're going to be ramping it up a little bit more on college football talk or college basketball talk, as well as the NBA, as those two take center stage. And then we get a little bit closer into spring training. We'll be bringing up some more Major League Baseball news. Ned Yost just was re-signed, extended through 2016 with the Kansas City Royals. And a lot of free agent signings, including some Cuban defectors and some Japanese league players, some new Japanese faces coming into the league this year. But college hoops first. It was a upset weekend, as we discussed on the Tuesday edition, and things took another turn for the worst. One team in particular, Duke, they fall to Miami at home. The Hurricanes came into Cameron Arena, and they tore up the Duke Blue Devils. It was ugly. I don't have the score in front of me, but I think that Miami won by like 15 or something. I mean, this was not a like buzzer beater where the other team just got lucky. Duke falls behind, catches up late or something, or vice versa. They're up, and then some crazy miracle run by Miami happens, and they hit some buzzer beater. No. Miami was in control just about this entire game. I mean, it was just about even at halftime, 34-31 or something like that, 34-33. Duke had the lead. And then in the second half, Miami just tore them apart. Outscored them by that 15 or 17-point margin or what have you. And they go on, snap a 41-game win streak in Cameron Arena for the Dukies. Next up for Duke, at Louisville. Then at home with Pittsburgh. It's getting a little scary there for Duke, but again, they're going to get in the tournament. The AP poll and your record, it's really just where you're going to see, where you're going to be as far as a seed is concerned in the tournament. So, of course, the wins are important. Of course, the record is important. Well, let's not get too hung up on it right now. They might just had a bad stretch, and we'll see what breaks out from that. Kentucky, meanwhile, they bounced back with a big win over Missouri, blow out the 7-8 Missouri Tigers, now 7-9 Missouri Tigers, 86-37. Yeah, they had the two close games versus A&M and what was it, Ole Miss, I think, or Mississippi State, one or the other. Went into overtime in both of those games, the A&M and a double overtime with A&M, and the overtime game with Mississippi. Scraped by 2 points in each of those contests. A lot of questions marks came up. The polls came out, and they lose two first place votes to Virginia. So they weren't a unanimous number one, are not a unanimous number one right now. And then they come out and they say, you know what? We'll show you. 86-37 over Missouri. Nice bounce back win for the Wildcats. And like I said, maybe those two close games were enough motivation. I like to see a team lose and not go undefeated during the regular season, but those two games may have been close enough to a loss to get them fired up again. And they may need that one more time before they go into the tournament as well. Meanwhile, Virginia, like I said, they'd steal two of those first-place votes, and that is a team that has been doing tremendous. That program, wow. You know, when Tony Bennett first went over there to Virginia to coach that team, I thought he was going to have some success. You know, Virginia is a place where you can have success. They're in the ACC, they're well located, and they do have some history. Now, they haven't been able to capitalize on a lot of that momentum over the years. They've had a few seasons where they were 8-8 in the conference and contenders, but really haven't been able to put it together until Tony Bennett got there. And now Tony Bennett's been there, 4 or 5 years now, and he has his team looking good. Second overall in the nation, in the polls, undefeated still. And in addition to that, he has wins over Maryland, VCU, Miami, Notre Dame. And coming up on the schedule, here's where it gets interesting. Here's where we see if Tony Bennett has really turned this squad, because they're going to have a little tough run here starting on January 1st. They're home against Duke, they go to UNC, and then they're home against Louisville. Back to back to back. So that's going to be the true test for Virginia. I think that'll give us a real good picture early here in the season as far as the conference schedule is concerned to really kind of evaluate Virginia as far as how good of a team they are. Defensively, we know they're solid. Do they have enough offense, which they've shown at times, but do they have enough offense against some of these kind of high-caliber teams? So, again, that starts January 31st, home at Duke, at UNC, and then Louisville. We're going to find out who this Virginia Cavaliers team really is with Coach Tony Bennett. Wish him the best of luck. The former Washington State Cougar head basketball coach brought us to great heights while he was here, and then unfortunately kind of just left in the middle of the night. And by that I mean in the middle of a 7-year, in the beginning of a 7-year contract. So had a bit of a tough time when he left, but you know, I wish him the best. He's a great coach, great guy. All right, that's going to do it for first segment. Coming up in segment 2, we're going to get into the NFL playoffs with a breakdown of the 2 championship games, of course, and I'll have a preview with predictions and scores. Yeah, we went 7-1 straight up in the playoffs so far, including an upset call of Indy over Denver. That only loss that I had was Pittsburgh and Baltimore. I thought they could get by for 1 week without Le'Veon Bell. Looks like they couldn't do that. So that was my one loss. We are 7-1 in our playoff calls this year, including that one at Indy and Denver. So you don't want to miss the predictions and previews coming up in segment 2. Later, we'll take a look at the NBA and some more headlines, all that and more. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel and email me your thoughts at radiohondo@gmail.com. I'm Radio Hondo, and this is The Flashback.